Good evening. This is Jalen Hasward. This is my three journal, my case study review. Before I begin, I just want to apologize for the tone of my voice. I'm a little sick right now, and I'm just getting back from stomach flu and everything, so a little more mellow on my approach. And also, want to apologize if you hear any background noise at all. I live with a lot of people at home. Sometimes I can't find the most perfect time to have like a quiet household. Um, but anyway, we're gonna get into this week three journal on the summary of the Meriden Anglican School for Girls. So, question one was, what were some of the key factors that affected remote learning practices? Um, I defined it by saying that the direct duty of the study was to focus on the transition and management of effective remote learning during periods of disruption, um, mainly focusing on teaching practices, student engagement, inclusion, and well being. There's a lot of various factors. One of the things that came straight to mind for factors that affect remote learning practices, something that we recently talked about, and it was that digital divide. Just that lack of being able to access technological things, computers, laptops, phones, things that are efficient and needed for learning digitally. It's important that these students have access to it, which is why I define some of the things like consistency in platforms and expectations, the constant access to technology and internet, learning environments such as home and classroom settings, and adapting routines, providing meaningful work and a sense of stability. That stability word there that goes such a long way in everything that I mentioned here. Stability in consistent technological access, stability in resources, and stability in a thriving learning environment. I really do feel like students cannot and usually will not get what they want to done if they do not have that consistency and the confidence and support there. So the case study gave us some insight into that, and I thought it was a great point. How were educators able to support inclusion? To ensure that inclusion was supported and prioritized, educators did use various techniques in the case study, and they used tactics to make sure that this desire did become reality. They presented various ways to interact with content, such as videos, visuals, and instructions. They were flexible with timeframes and deadlines to accommodate the students. They used various accommodations to assist students who needed different structuring and approaches. And it was quoted saying that learning was also designed to specifically minimize reliance on technologies. I think in that aspect, I meant bringing in a bunch of different sources, different websites, and things that can get a little tricky and it can make students, fall behind or get confused, especially if they're just interacting with or really getting comfortable with using technology for many assignments. So I think simplifying that goes a long, long way and making sure that inclusion is there, making sure that each student has that equal and reliable access. Like I mentioned before, with the digital divide, it just goes a long way. Being flexible and open to fresh approaches to help students with inclusion results in valued focus on differentiation and individualization for these learning students. How are educators able to support student well being? This one was important, extremely important. One of the most important and regarded things a phenomenal educator can do is know how to balance and provide support for the well being of their students while learning inside of the classroom or outside the classroom. Regular check ins that include feedback and voicing and listening to concerns, encouraging social connection through virtual group activities, reducing mental overload by prioritizing essential learning and flexibility and creative strategies. Making consistent strides to build connections and understanding of what a student may need, whether it's something as simple as a math problem or caring for a student dealing with hard things at home, does make a student feel supported and understood in and out of the classroom setting. I really do feel like you will bring the best out of a student if you just make them feel like they are supported and understood. I think there's a bit of a gap sometimes with educators feeling like their job is just to inform students, and I think it goes way beyond that. I think you're creating a foundation for someone's future, and you have to do what you can with your resources and what you know to give them that stability. Sometimes you're not going to get 110% effort out of them. We never know what's going on in their lives, but it's important to show up for them no matter what. What was one thing that I learned that I might implement into my own practices and why? This was a great question, and I quoted saying that while the case study did provide me with new effective ideas and strategies that I would definitely love to use when I introduce digital or even hybrid curriculum into my classroom setting. I still feel that the most important of the strategies and the things that were prioritized had to be practicality on supporting students' well being. I said that being a student in an unfamiliar environment while learning new things is hard, and doing that with no real support can feel isolating. The most concrete one out of all the examples they gave us was when it was quoted in one of the subsections that increased use of e portfolios and targeted online feedback. I thought that was an amazing kind of idea because these e portfolios, you can gather up students' work, you can have a record, not a record, but like a collection of everything that they progressed with, and you could just kind of help them stay on that path. This goes back to the idea that we may not know what's going on, but it's just good to show up and be flexible in showing up for those students. Um, the online feedback is great. I think it's something that can be done in person, online, whatever's comfortable for um, both parties. Um, excuse me. So the reason that the online feedback would work great, maybe there's that fear of the initial face to face interaction. Some people like giving information or just leaving stuff straightforward, and sometimes I can make someone feel shy or nervous or scared of what might be heard, so that online expression might help. The gap of the face to face interaction might help a lot. But then you also have those students that can interact with what's going on and be vocal in person. It goes a long way just being able to accommodate and figure out what works best for a student. I finished it off by saying no matter what kind of student you may have as a teacher, you may not be able to bring out the best of them if you do not make them feel loved and supported on their academic and personal growth journey. These students are definitely in our classrooms to learn and become familiar, comfortable, and confident in whatever the subject is, whether it's basic elementary common core standards or it's something as high as a high school workshop, something specific. But you might not get the best student or get the best effort if you don't sit there and show up. I think a lot of times in the educational field for students are always going to remember their favorite teacher for how they showed up, provided different routine, different strategies, different accommodations. And they're also always going to remember their least liked teacher for just not caring enough. And I feel like being that individual who shows up and tries no matter what and comes up with a plan B, plan C, plan D, etc., that goes such a long way. These are my references. Obviously, I use the website and the information that was provided for the School of Girls case study. I also grabbed it from UMass Global, and I just want to reference that because we had the case study in full, and then we also had the summary of the case study. Thank you.